No, then get out.
Get out of the car.
Get out of the car.
Get out of the car.
Get out of the car!
When 21-year-old Takaya Young walked out of the Kroger store at Blendon Township on August 24, 2023, she couldn't even imagine the horrifying fate she was going to meet. What was supposed to be a regular grocery run ended up being a nightmare, and this pregnant woman lost her precious life in a matter of seconds. But what had happened on that fateful day? Why did a normal day turn into a nightmare for Takaya Young and the officers who were just doing their job? Let's find out how it all went down and how we lost a happy and young woman whose unborn baby didn't get to see the light of day. On August 24, 2023, Blendon Township police officers were on their regular duty in a Kroger's parking lot, assisting a driver who was locked out of her car. The second officer had just finished with a nearby car accident and was also helping the other officer unlock the car. A store employee approached one of the officers from behind and informed him that a shopper had allegedly stolen bottles of alcohol and was fleeing the spot. Police have released exclusive body cam footage of the incident, which helps explain the scenario of that day frame by frame. Russell Martin, also known as Russ Martin, former Delaware County Sheriff and Chief of Police for the city of Delaware, saw the body cam footage and shared his analysis for the general public.
I'm Russ Martin, former Delaware County Sheriff and Chief of Police for the city of Delaware. I have no connection to the Blendon Township Police Department, but they asked me to provide and review some context that might be helpful to the general public about the body-worn camera video from the tragic officer-involved shooting that recently happened. I want to be clear. I won't be making any conclusions about whether what the officer did was right or wrong. I'll simply offer analysis similar to what any investigator might look at when reviewing body-worn camera video of a use of force incident.
He has 40 years of experience in law enforcement, based on which he is well capable of analyzing an incident. We will share some of his insights here, too, for clarity.
The Kroger employee tells Officer 2 that the woman getting into the black Lexus has just stolen things from the store.
Hey, stop. Hey, out of the car. Out of the car.
The officer immediately ran towards the vehicle and repeatedly asked her to come out of the car. A couple of seconds later, he was joined by the other officer.
Out of the car. Out of the car. Out of the car. Out of the car.
In his analysis, Officer Martin mentioned that the officers in the scene were maintaining the right protocols.
It's well within the legal authority of police to temporarily stop and detain anyone believed to be part of a potential crime.
The woman in the driver's seat was none other than Takaya Young. She rolled down her window and asked why she was being asked to come out. The officer mentions the reason, but she still refuses to leave the car.
Out of the car.
What?
Out of the car.
What?
They said you stole stuff, do not leave. Get out of the car. Then get out. No, then get out.
Things got pretty heated at this point. The other officer had already stationed himself in front of the car, waiting for Takaya to come out, but she slowly drove the car forward. The first officer slammed his fist against the half-open window in an attempt to stop her, and the other officer pulled his gun out. That was the moment when everything went downhill. Takaya took one look at the gun. Panic seized her as she asked the officer if he was going to fire at her. Within a few seconds, she felt something hit her body.
Get out. Get out of the car. Get out of the car!
The car drove for around 50 feet from its parking spot and rolled onto the sidewalk, with the cops having no clue whether Takaya still had control over the vehicle. They chased the car all the way to the sidewalk. As it stopped, they broke the window to open the door and reach Takaya.
Shots fired.
Shots fired! Stop the car! Stop! Stop! Car!
We're gonna have a 34 on the couple now. He's gonna be out.
This is where the body cam footage ended. The law enforcement department claimed that the officers pulled Takaya out of the car and started medical treatment on her immediately when the paramedics were on their way. Though there was some reports that Takaya was placed in handcuffs before being assisted. Unfortunately, Takaya succumbed to her injuries. Just like most other controversial cases, this case also got a lot of publicity. The public raised fingers at the officers and demanded more effective policing towards the Black community. The matter was even more sensitive this time, as as previously there have been a series of similar incidents in Ohio. The body cam footage was received with a lot of mixed reaction with the public. One side labeled the incident as gruesome and careless, while the other claimed that the officers were just doing their job. Speaking from his 40 years of experience in law enforcement, Russ Martin explains the actions of the officers in his analysis. According to him, a driver seated in a car is one of the most dangerous encounters an officer can have. Law enforcement officers are usually trained to be at a safe distance from any vehicle that has the alleged criminal in it, and for obvious reasons. The officers are always advised to take position in a way that shows the driver as much as possible.
It's dangerous because there are many places in a car where a weapon can be hidden, and the driver's hands are often out of view.
If there are two officers present in the scene, one must engage in a conversation with the alleged perpetrator while the other closely observes the scenario to understand risks, says Martin. Even though Takaya didn't have a weapon on her, the body cam footage shows that the officer who fired at her was in an exposed and vulnerable position and had a higher chance of being run over by her.
Police officers are generally at greater risk either directly in front of or behind a car for obvious reasons. Drivers can drive forward or backward into the officers when they're in that most vulnerable position.
Instead of walking out, Takaya starts to turn the steering wheel to the right and slowly drives the car forward. This prompts the officer to pull out his firearm and direct it at her to stop her.
Police officers are trained to draw their firearms when threatened with deadly force, which can be from a gun, a knife, or a vehicle.
Takaya was indeed battling her own fears. All she wanted was to escape the situation, and she didn't consider if she was going to run over the officer. So when she started driving the car, she dragged the cop along a few feet, which is an indication that he was in danger.
When you look at side-by-side footage from both officers' body cameras, you can see that the suspect's car pushes Officer 1 backwards several feet. It's clear from the video that the car makes contact with the officer.
This prompted the officer to fire at her, which led her to lose control of the car and drive right into the sidewalk. Takaya Young lost her life along with her unborn child sometime after being arrested. The parking lot footage also shows the vulnerable position of the second officer. But was this just a rash decision taken by the officers in the heat of the moment? Can the law enforcement officers be blamed for the incident? Could the officers have done something different to de-escalate the situation? Why didn't Takaya step out of the car and clear the confusion of the officers and leave the parking lot without a threat? This is where the story gets its shocking twist. Kroger has released surveillance camera footage from inside the store which shows her activity. Takaya, along with two other women, visited Kroger and stuffed a bunch of alcohol bottles in the spare bags that they had carried into the store. The way she looked around, she supposedly knew that the store was heavily monitored, but that didn't stop her from the risky act. She skillfully added bottles to her shopping basket for show, and when she got the chance, quickly stuffed them in her bag and added more bottles to the basket. Takaya then stood in the line at the cash register like a normal shopper, but as the other two women approached her, they quickly walked away from the line and left the shop. Officers informed the media that alarms went off as they walked out of the store with the goods they hadn't paid for. This footage proves that the accusations brought against her were true. This could be the reason she didn't cooperate with the officers and refused to come out of the car. The fear of being arrested could have pushed her to drive away. In an unfortunate effort to do so, she ended up losing her life. Tragically, her family didn't just lose her, but the innocent baby in her womb as well. Takaya Young had two little boys, and she doted on them. The mother's unconditional love never fell short for her brothers, and she had planned a similar life for her soon-to-be-born daughter. But unfortunately, her fate had other plans for her. Now her boys are left without a mother, and they will have to bear the loss for the rest of their lives. Takaya's mother, Nadine Young, remembers her granddaughter fondly as she mourns her.
Vivacious, the light of the party, just a bright shining light, that's it.
Her family is devastated and have called out the negligence and brutality demonstrated by the officers. Their attorney, Sean Walton, claimed this as murder and pointed out that the law enforcement officers were negligent and didn't provide proper medical care to a pregnant and wounded woman, which led to her untimely death. He never denied the theft, but mentioned that a small theft can't be the reason for taking away someone's life. He argued that a pregnant and wounded woman has pulled out of the car in handcuffs, whereas she should have received received proper medical care first. Walton, on behalf of the young family, pressed charges against the officer who took her life. However, the police department claimed that they were quick to provide medical support to the wounded right after the arrest. They called the emergency medical service 10 seconds after extracting her from the car, and the team also applied a chest seal from the trauma kit on her within 2 minutes. The team believed that these steps would be enough to keep her alive until more help arrived. There are footages to support these claims, but due to the graphic nature of the content, they're not shared with the public. In another video, Takaya's grandmother Nadine directly blames the officer for their grave loss.
So many plans that she had is taken away because of that man.
Takaya's maternal grandmother had lost her daughter in 2022, and it's been very difficult for her to say goodbye to her granddaughter at such a short interval. The police department has claimed that the officers present in the scenario were also victims, and so their identities have been kept confidential. The officer who had pulled the trigger on Takaya was put on administrative leave, but the other officer was allowed to join work. After releasing the footage, Police Chief John Belford said that they know the public will speak about the actions of the officers and will likely have strong reactions against them, but they want to remain transparent and release the videos to clarify the incident. He also admits that the situation was indeed tragic for everyone involved. At the end of his analysis of the body cam footage, retired Officer Russ Martin said that these decisions are taken under highly stressful situations, and no one intends to take another person's life without any thought.
It's important to remember that police officers have to make these difficult decisions in a split second, often in the middle of a highly stressful and very dangerous situation.
But there have been far too many incidents like this in the past, which has caused a lot of mistrust and fear of the police. This indicates that law enforcement needs to find less lethal ways of handling suspects and dealing with these situations. Around 100 people attended Takaya's service held at Church of Christ in Columbus. Many of her friends and family wore various shades of pink on the occasion to pay homage to the deceased, as pink was Takaya's favorite color. Locals of the area held a small makeshift memorial outside the Kroger store to pay their condolences to Takaya. Her friends and family also held a vigil and lit candles that spelled out her name. Whether by mistake or through a rash decision, a young mother of two was taken away when she had her whole life lying ahead. While the public is finding it hard to believe that she truly stole goods from Kroger, they're also finding it hard to understand why she had to lose her life over it. Do you believe that a little caution and cooperation from both the parties could have saved this innocent life? What would your approach be if you were in that situation? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video to show your support. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell for notifications to get notified of future uploads. See you soon with the next exciting story.